Lesson 97, Book 4, Stage 7. Not any books, no books. Not any books, no books. Instead of saying not any books, etc., we can say no books. For example, I have not any books, or I have no books. What can we say instead of not any books? What can we say instead of not any books?
We can say no books instead of not any books.
Very good. Could you give me another example, please?
There is any sugar in my tea, or there's no sugar in my tea.
Perfect. Draw, drew, drawn. Draw, drew, drawn. Very good. Recognizable, recognizable. What's the paradigm of the verb to draw? What's the paradigm of the verb to draw?
The paradigm of the verb to draw is draw, drew, drawn.
If you drew this table across the floor, do you think it would leave a mark behind it? If you drew this table across the floor, do you think it would leave a mark behind it?
Yes, if I drew this table across the floor, I think it would leave a mark behind it.
Very good. If you drew my face, do you suppose it would be recognizable? If you drew my face, do you think it would be recognizable?
No, if I drew your face, I don't suppose it would be recognizable.
And why not?
Because I don't draw very well.
Very good. About how long ago is it since everything was drawn by horses? About how long ago is it since everything was drawn by horses?
I think it's about 100 years since everything was drawn by horses.
Very good. Finally, lastly, at last. Finally, lastly, at last. The word finally is in some ways similar to the word eventually, whilst in some ways it is used differently. For example, in a sentence such as, "Ah, you finally arrived," we could not say, "Ah, you've eventually arrived." The word eventually means in the end, whilst finally means lastly or at last. So what's the difference between the words eventually and finally? What's the difference between the words eventually and finally?
The difference between the words eventually and finally is that eventually means in the end, whilst finally means lastly or at last.
Very good. Give me a sentence with the word finally in it, please.
I finally arrived.
Yes, very good. Claim, take to court, lawyer, property, lost property office, damage. Claim, take to court, lawyer, property, lost property office, damage. If I claimed to be a millionaire, would you believe me? If I claimed to be a millionaire, would you believe me?
No, if you claim to be a millionaire, I wouldn't believe you.
Why not?
Because you would not be teaching here now.
Okay, fair enough. If someone hit your car and it was his fault, could you claim damages against him? If someone hit your car and it was his fault, could you claim damages against him?
If someone hit my car and it was his fault, I could claim damages against him.
If he refused your claim, what would you do? If he refused your claim, what would you do?
If he refused my claim, I would have to take him to court.
If a relation of yours died and left you some land or other property, where would you have to go in order to claim it legally? If a relation of yours died and left you some land or other property, where would you have to go in order to claim it legally?
If a relation of mine died and left me some land or other property, I would have to go to a lawyer's office to claim it legally.
Where must you go in order to claim things that you've left on the train? Where must you go to claim things that you've left on the train?
I must go to the lost property office in order to claim things that I've left on the train.
Very good. Youth, the youth, a youth. Youth, the youth, a youth. Do you think the youth of today is better educated, happier, etc. than the youth of the old days? Do you think the youth of today is happier, more educated, etc. than the youth of the old days?
No, I don't think the youth of today is better educated, happier than the youth of the older days.
What kind of jobs can a youth do better than an old man? What jobs can a youth do better than an old man?
The kind of jobs that you can do better than an old man are driving a car fast or flying a fast plane.
Very good. It will be noticed in this last question that the word kind has no S on the end. Some people put an S on the end, others do not. Sentences group to make sense. Compound, finite, conjunction, mood, as opposed to. Compound, finite, conjunction, mood, as opposed to. A sentence is a group of words that makes complete sense by itself. For example, I'm going to Scotland tomorrow. There are two kinds of sentences, simple sentences and compound sentences. A simple sentence contains only one finite verb. For example, I always go home after 8. A compound sentence is a sentence that consists of two or more sentences joined together by a conjunction or conjunctions such as the words and or but, etc. For example, I always go home at 8 and have dinner at about 8:15, but I do not watch TV until about 9. Etc. A finite verb is a verb that is limited by person, number, tense or mood, as opposed to the infinitive, gerund or participle. So, what is a sentence? What is a sentence?
A sentence is a group of words that makes complete sense by itself.
Very good. What are the two kinds of sentences? What are the two kinds of sentences?
The two kinds of sentences are simple sentence and compound sentence.
Very good. What is a simple sentence? What is a simple sentence?
A simple sentence is one which contains only one finite verb.
And example, please?
I do not understand him.
Very good. What is a finite verb? What is a finite verb?
A finite verb is a verb that is limited by person, number, tense, or mood.
What is a compound sentence? What is a compound sentence?
A compound sentence is one that consists of two or more sentences joined together by a conjunction, such as the words and or but.
Can you give me an example of a compound sentence, please?
Open your book, please, but do not read until I tell you to do so.
Very good. Clause, principle, subordinate, relative pronoun. Clause, principle, subordinate, relative pronoun. A clause is a group of words which does not make complete sense by itself. For example, which I like, that he could not do it, when I'm very tired, etc. In order for a clause to make sense, we must put another clause together with it. For example, that is the car which I like. John said that he couldn't do it. I sleep deeply when I'm very tired. The first part of the sentence is called the principal clause, whilst the second part is called the subordinate clause. A subordinate clause is joined to the principal clause by a conjunction or relative pronoun, which, who, when, etc. So, what is a clause? What is a clause?
A clause is a group of words which does not make complete sense by itself.
Some examples, please.
Which I told you about, that they were French, when she realized she had been seen.
Very good. What are the two kinds of clauses? What are the two kinds of clauses?
The two kinds of clauses are principal and subordinate.
How are subordinate clauses joined to principal clauses? How are subordinate clauses joined to the principal clauses?
Subordinate clauses are joined to principal clauses by conjunctions or relative pronouns.
Such as?
And, but, which, that, etc.
Very good. Can you give me some examples, please?
That is the car which I like.
Very good. Descend, descent, descend, descent. Do you have to descend to go from this room to outside the building? Do you have to descend to go from this building, to go out of this building, outside?
Yes, I have to descend from this room to go outside of the building.
Very good. What's the noun of the verb descend? What's the noun of the verb descend?
The noun of the verb descend is descent.
Holy Jerusalem. Holy Jerusalem. What, for someone who believes in the Christian religion, is the holy city? What, for the person who believes in Christian religion, is the holy city?
For someone who believes in a religion, the Christian religion, Jerusalem is the holy city.
Very good. Confess. Confess.
Confess.
If you are not able to do something, do you think it's better to confess to the fact? If you're not able to do something, do you think it's better to confess to the fact?
Yes, if I'm not able to do something, I think it's better to confess to the fact.
Very good. Birth. 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 Do you think the father should be allowed in the room at the birth of his child? Do you think the father should be allowed in the room at the birth of his child?
Yes, I think the father should be allowed in the room at the birth of his child.
Very good. Shore. Shore. Which is safer, to build a house on the seashore or on the shore of a lake? Which is safer, to build a house on the shore of the seashore or to build a house on the shore of the lake?
It's safer to build a house on the shore of a lake.
Why?
Because the weather will not be so rough.
Very good. Thank you. End of lesson 97.